So after the first stage, which is rough, the time trial is pretty short and easy, and then it's time for another hard road stage. The Cascades Lakes road race is pretty awesome. They've changed the course back and forth a few times, but this year in 2017, they're going to start down in Bend and then climb up and over Mount Bachelor, do a couple loops in like the foothills around there, or whatever you'd call that terrain, and then back up to Mount Bachelor again. So the first hour of the race is basically just one big climb. It's a big highway climb. It's not very steep most of the way, but it's pretty tough. I mean, it's a long threshold effort, and for some people, it's a place to attack. It's something that can set up the break for the day, but for some people, they're just holding on, and you really have to be prepared to go hard for the first hour of this stage. After that, you can probably ease up a little bit for the next few hours before the finishing climb. But it's a hard stage. It's fun, or not if it's hard for you. It's kind of rolly as you get out of town. It's not a big deal. There's some fighting for position. Just relax. Even if somebody attacks from the gun, it's so wide open and there's such a long climb that everything gets sorted out over the next hour, and that first 5 minutes doesn't really have any impact on the race. People will shuffle around. There's a lot of swarming usually, or some, and then things kind of start to get sorted out 5 minutes and 10 minutes into the climb. Some people will attack early. I don't think I've ever seen it where a break goes right away and they actually stay away. Usually the pace of the field slowly ramps up until it's kind of hard towards the top. It flattens out for a minute and then it goes up again over the top of the climb, and that's usually where the break goes. Usually I wouldn't expect the breakaway on this stage to stay away, but if it's big enough, it can. Whoever is in the GC, they're going to let it have a couple minutes and then they're going to slowly bring it back, and the race finishes on a climb again. You have to climb back up to Mount Bachelor, so in that last 10 miles to the finish, you can lose a ton of time. Like there could be a breakaway with 2 minutes advantage on the field, and it might be gone halfway up that last climb because those guys are all tired and the field is a little bit fresher and people are motivated to control their spot on the GC or to try to jump up on the GCs. Let's say you are in the field and you're riding smart and you're conserving energy the whole day. That's probably a smart move, and probably it's going to work out for you. If you're a good climber, you have a good chance of doing well. That last 5 miles before the climb, it's going to be fast and people will be fighting for position. Try to position yourself well. Don't kill yourself because it is several miles uphill at the end, but definitely don't find yourself in the middle or back of the pack if you want to do well, because it's going to take a lot of work to move up when if you were already in the top third of the field or the top quarter, it'll save you a ton of energy. So if you have teammates to help you, or if you can float at the back of some other team who has a train up front, do what you can to efficiently be near the front. Be as far forward as you can with 10 miles and 8 miles and 5 miles to go. Probably the race will sort itself out where 2/3 of the field are all dropped, 5 miles to go, and by the last 5 or 10 minutes of the race, then there's maybe only a dozen or 2 dozen guys that even remotely have a chance of winning the stage or being on the podium. And again, this stage is really tough. It's long. It's not as hot because it's at a little bit of elevation, but it's going to leave you pretty depleted of glycogen and pretty low on fluids. So go up there with a plan for rehydrating and getting calories immediately after the stage. I would probably have a bottle of mix, a bottle of recovery protein shake, and a couple bananas, maybe some pastries, or peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or some Pop-Tarts. Anything that's pretty easy to digest carbohydrates and a little bit of protein with plenty of fluids is going to be great. If you want to, that stage is nice because you can cruise your bike down the hill, and it's like the easiest ride in the world. It's just a big highway descent, so you can kind of soft pedal your way for probably like 30 or 45 minutes to get back into town. So depending on where you're living or where you're staying in Bend, that might be a nice way to cool down and loosen up your legs after a hard race. But just take that into account as an option if you have somebody else that can drive your team car back. Or if you are gonna drive back, definitely be sure to have at least 600, 800 calories of extra food and fluids in your car so that you can start eating right away. Because if you go back to your car, you cool down, you pack up your stuff and then drive down, it'll be an hour to an hour and a half before you can get any food if you're waiting until you get to Bend to start eating. So it'll hurt you a lot the next day if you don't start eating right away. So have a plan and have some stuff with you. That's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that some of it was useful or interesting to you. Please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to see when I put out new material. And please, go ahead and comment or question below or shoot me an email if you want. I'd love to hear from you because I really want to make sure that I'm catering to what it is that you need. And that's it for this video. I hope to see you next time. A couple of years when I was first getting into racing and did the Cascade Classic when I was, a relatively young Cat 1, I tried to go for the break a couple of times, and each time it went there and I missed it because I was riding too aggressively early on. Later on, the last year that I did it, I actually worked with one of my teammates and a handful of other guys who wanted to be in the break and wanted to race aggressively to force the break over the top. We basically stayed within striking distance but didn't worry too much most of the way up, but then over the top we just hit it pretty hard and it was pretty fun. It was a dynamic race. If there's a few guys in the break that are really strong and people in the field recognize that they are some of the strongest time trialists or overall GC riders that maybe didn't do well on the first stage or lost time in the time trial, maybe they're trying to go for a stage win and they're willing to take a risk and put themselves out there. If there's enough horsepower in the breakaway, the field has to react and either chase them down early, or there might be people bridging up to the break later. So in 2015, that's what happened with our race. Basically, me and my teammate Max and maybe a dozen other guys, worked really hard. We forced a break over the top, and we were committed to trying to upset the status quo in the race. After another 30 miles or so, another group bridged up to us, and that was the race. There was then 40 guys off the front of the main field, and the main field never caught us again. That breakaway or selection of a couple of breaks that had kind of congealed together ended up completely shattering in the last hour of the race, and there were just groups of 2s and 3s and 5s after a lot of aggressive racing. It was really fun and really hard, and I forget what GC position I was after the first couple of days. I think I was in 40th or something. I was several minutes back because I didn't have an awesome first day, but I ended up in 5th in the GC after the third stage because it completely shuffled around and shattered the previous standings. So a lot can happen on any stage, but in general, usually there's a small break that the field allows to go up the road that they can control and they know they can bring back. The couple of teams that have the most likely GC contenders will keep them in check and then slowly bring them back, usually towards the base of the final climb, but they'll almost be sure to have them within striking distance so that people in the field are probably going to be the ones winning the race.